Inc. essentially was born out of how do we solve for these challenges, right? How do we remove those barriers so that underestimated, underrepresented founders can successfully build, startup companies? And what's sort of like the long tail of it, right? So yeah, that's cool. We can do that. The long tail of it is to drive social and economic equity for those communities, right? And the importance of that in terms of reducing the racial wealth gap, having our people become the job creators and the wealth generators and the community leaders that get those opportunities to be able to do that.
We created this podcast with the idea that we were going to create a platform that would help entrepreneurs who maybe come from non-traditional backgrounds, help them get more exposure to their brand, their business, their mission. And so it's been a great ride. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Underestimated podcast. My name is Rodell Razor. This is season 2. I am joined by my business partner, best friend, Jeremiah Captain, but I am very excited about you guys joining us. First and foremost, we want to thank our sponsors who make all this possible. We have a wonderful guest for you guys that's out of Austin, Texas, that we're excited to share with you. But this show would not be possible without our sponsors. So we thank our sponsors, and we're excited to kick off season 2.
Yep, and I'm Jeremiah Captain, excited to be alongside riding shotgun with my business partner, Rodell, as he said. We started X Factor Capital really just to find, fund, and fuel Black founders and bring just, access to capital and connections to help people grow their businesses in the tech ecosystem. And we couldn't be more excited than having someone who's really been a pioneer, really out in the streets, in the woods with a machete chopping down the pathway for diverse founders in the state of Texas, really supporting that whole Golden Triangle area. So we have our good friend Preston James out of Austin, Texas. And I just want to give a quick little backstory. When we were down on a speaking little spree down at the University of Texas, this name just kept coming up in rooms. You guys got to meet Preston. You got to meet Preston. You got to meet him. And it was like, who's this guy, Preston, right? And then literally the month of February, Black History Month, we flew out to Texas for another meeting that we had. And just the power of a network, one email goes out and we get an invite to come support Preston and his team, DivInc. He's the co-founder of DivInc, really a champion for diversity and inclusion in the tech industry. They were doing a Black in Tech Week, and they had an event at the Capitol Factory. And as soon as we walked in and I locked eyes with Preston, he was just had this big, bubbly spirit, very inviting, and really creating just a culture of, effervescence. In that space. So really excited to have DivInc founder Preston James on board.
What's up? How's it going, fellas? It's great to see both of y'all. And thanks for having me today.
Of course.
Yeah, so we'd love just to learn a little bit more about, who you are, what do you do, and why do you do it?
Well, I'm, Preston James. I am the co-founder and CEO of DivInc. We are headquartered out of Austin, Texas. And what we are is we are a startup ecosystem builder specifically focused on underestimated, underrepresented founders. And why did we start this back in 2016? So just to kind of give you some backstory on that path, if you will. Back in 2014, I had been a 20-year veteran at Dell Technologies and spent my time in IT technology consulting and sales. My last role there, I was a managing director for the Global Center for Entrepreneurship, which was a key initiative to help startup companies and small businesses leverage Dell technology to help them scale and grow. Long story short, I got bit by the startup bug, but along that path also, I recognized there was not a lot of people of color. There weren't a lot of women that I was seeing in this tech startup space. But at some point, that's something I wanted to be able to address. Lo and behold, there was an opportunity to take an early retirement from Dell, and I took it. And so the latter part of 2014, I actually became a startup mentor. I was invited by Capital Factory, which is the startup innovation hub in Austin. And I was invited by them to become a startup mentor there at Capital Factory. And within maybe a month of that, I was also encouraged, if you will, to become an angel investor. And a friend of mine was really kind of pressing me to become an angel investor. And so when I asked her why, well, why are you pressing me? You don't know me like that, right? Well, why are you pressing me? Yeah, I'm like, you all up in my pockets. You telling me I need to write some checks. I'm like,
hey, don't nobody be Preston press.
Yeah, don't press.
So, and so, when I asked her, I said, why? She says, well, I've been doing this startup entrepreneurship for a while, and I can't recall meeting a Black angel investor. So, kind of, what? So I was trying like, come on, you blowing some smoke up my, And so that afternoon, man, I went home and did some research. I remember this is 2014. And what I was able to find through Google search, right, was basically 10 publicly known Black angel investors in the startup world, right? And I thought to myself, this can't be it, right? Surely there's some others out there, but they're not publicly known. And so I said, okay, look, I'm gonna be number 11. I'm just gonna go ahead and do this, and I made the crazy mistake, if you will, of going into LinkedIn and changing my title to angel investor, right?
Everybody not going
to. So I guess I had this need to have a job or something, right? So I put that on there. So in a nutshell, what happened what I recognized very quickly is at Capital Factory, they had about 100 mentors. And I was the only Black mentor at that time out of 100. And then I also joined the Angel Network group here in Austin, and they had 125 members. And so when I rolled in, I was the only Black angel investor in that group. So, kind of like not a surprise, but, kind of like, dang, right? The lack of diversity is pretty insane. So weren't seeing a whole lot of women or people of color as founders, wasn't seeing any as investors, any of us as investors, and that bothered me, right? Wasn't seeing a whole lot of folks in the Capital Factory space and the co-working spaces at demo days. So it really bothered me, and I wanted to understand why what was going on. And so I spent time talking to the ecosystem leaders. Spent time talking to founders, mentors, and what really came down to for me in this research that I had was that number one, it was three major barriers, right? The first barrier was the lack of education and best practices, the know-how by our folks to understand how to build these scalable startups. They don't teach you in school. They don't teach you any of that. It's in the street, right? It's in the ecosystem. Number two was the barrier in terms of the human and social capital, right? The networks, right? Which, we just had different networks, communities that we were involved in. And I thought this was interesting because 20 years at Dell, and I was 25 minutes from the hub of the startup ecosystem in Austin, and I had no idea what was going on in the startup hub, right? No idea. So I can imagine, others had no clue. To this day, people still don't know. And then the third barrier was access to financial capital. And so DivInc essentially was born out of how do we solve for these challenges, right? How do we remove those barriers so that underestimated, underrepresented founders can successfully build startup companies. And what's sort of like the long tail of it, right? So yeah, that's cool. We can do that. The long tail of it is um, to drive social and economic equity for those communities, right? And the importance of that in terms of reducing the racial wealth gap, having our people become the job creators and the wealth generators and the community leaders that get those opportunities to be able to do that. And that was the importance of it, because economically speaking, socially speaking, we were not, we obviously we know, right? Equality, equity, inclusiveness, that is just missing today,
Right.
right? And so how do we build a more authentically inclusive, more innovative community by making it more inclusive? So DivInc was born out of, let's go basically change the game. Let's go and create these communities where we create those opportunities um, for these innovative, inclusive economies in the cities that we serve.
Yeah. So just like a founder who's working at a company who sees a gap in something that's not been taken care of by whether it's startup or a big company, that you see an opportunity, so you branch out and go create something. Even though this is considered an accelerator, it's considered an ecosystem that you're building. It still somewhat is like a startup idea, starting 8 years ago with the vision and going out there and actually seeing it through, and been running this thing for the past 6 years. So just congratulations, because like I said, most ideas, most businesses flop before they don't even get out of the idea onto paper, let alone get on the paper into reality. So just congratulations on what you guys have built thus far, and just amazing to see just the champions that are coming in and out of the ecosystem. I know you guys just finished up your sports tech accelerator. I think you guys had that down in Houston. So just congratulations on all the success.
Thank you. It's been a blessing. Throughout the whole journey. And like you said, I mean, we started with this idea, with this concept. DivInc is a nonprofit, right? And that's how we were built. And so, but we are a startup in every sense of the word, right? Taking this idea, taking this concept, and really trying to solve a big problem within the communities, not just here in Austin, but nationwide, right? Globally.
Yep.
And so that is our goal, right? Is to take what we're doing with our programming, with the infrastructure that we built, with our ability to create communities, inclusive communities, and really mobilize the communities that we're part of to change the way we've been doing things. So it's been a blessing to do this work. It's a heavy lift, man. It's and you guys know this as well as I do, man. It's a real heavy lift, and it's and I heard something the other day. It's like we can't stop, we don't stop, and we will not stop until we get to where we want to go. So I'm just really blessed to be able to do this work and meet folks like you guys and others in the community that are have that same passion.
Yeah. Well, Preston, like Jeremiah said, it's incredibly impressive what you guys have done at DivInc. And I think something that's interesting, and I want to, we'll rewind the clock a little bit before we go into the future, if that's all right with you. So talk about your time early. I mean, the early years of Dell. I mean, it was founded I think it was in the mid 80s, and I think you came in about 5 or 10 years in, something like that. So it was a relatively smaller company than what we know it to be today. So talk to us about some of those experiences in working with Michael Dell and the team there.
Man, it was crazy, man. It was a great experience for me. I joined in the early '90s, and I got funny stories all over the place. But early '90s, I was actually in Washington D.C., and so when I got hired in, I think Dell had maybe 3,000 employees. Right now, Dell is like 110,000 employees. Even pre major acquisitions, it was like 110,000 employees. So, but imagine Washington D.C., and Dell had no offices outside of Austin. So you had to work remotely, right? So if you can imagine everybody who was challenged with working remote, during the pandemic, during the lockdown, we were doing that in '93.
Yeah.
And so definitely a different experience, carrying around big phone cases because this was pre-smartphone, right? You're doing your email, 2400 baud modem, and I know there's some Gen Z and Gen X. They'd be like, "What the hell is a 2400 baud modem? What is that?" Right? So, but and then the communication, no GPSs, none of that stuff, right? But really building your business in the territory, and I was covering from basically the whole East Coast. And but working with Michael, I mean, my orientation, Michael came into my employee orientation, so like day 3, right? And get to hear this, this young CEO talk about his vision and how engaged he was with the employees and with customers. And what really struck me over the years is watching him grow from this 19-year-old, CEO to, 35, 40-year-old CEO, how he grew, how he matured as a leader. And then his vision, he was a true visionary, right? And I'll give you an example. I remember one time at a team meeting, he basically said, "Hey, look, I think we were doing I can't remember exactly how much revenue we were doing in sales, but he came in and said 50% of our revenue is going to be driven from the internet."
Wow.
And I mean, people were looking around at each other in the room like, what's he talking about? This dude, he must be smoking some really good stuff because we're not doing anything on the internet, and you can't really sell computers on the internet. But how's he? And so he envisioned that, and not only did we, were we groundbreaking with that in the industry. I mean, we took the industry by storm, right? And just remarkable vision, not just in terms of products, but supply chain and direct to the direct model in overall customer service and how we went about servicing our customers. It was just an unbelievable experience in how Dell revolutionized the industry, not by tech products, but by the business and by the business operation. So it was wonderful to be part of. And even as the company got so large, right, to be able to watch Michael come and walk the floor, right, to be amongst employees, for him to get on a headset on the sales floor and talk to customers directly. Right, to a point where customers are like, "Hey, y'all need to stop playing." Michael Dell sat on the other line with me. You know what I mean? It's like, no, this is Michael Dell. You're talking to Michael Dell. He's taking your order, right? And so he wants your feedback. And so and then the other thing I would say that if I would tell him that I'm actually proud of how he grew as a leader in terms of his approach to diversity, equity, and inclusion as well. Just as a 19-year-old, Jewish white kid, at the University of Texas, going to build his business, he didn't know nothing about, diversity, equity, inclusion. He was just basically hiring his friends, hiring a whole lot of people as fast as he could. And his network was his network, right? And then to watch him mature and then, go and hire diversity, equity leaders long before many of his peers. To really take the lead and understand that him as a CEO has to be the voice of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And to see him continue to do that and grow into that leadership role, even today, is something I could be proud of and say, "Hey, I work with this guy," and So overall, man, I mean, professionally, personally, it was a blessing for me to have, worked at Dell for those 20 years, and an experience I wouldn't trade, a trade for the world. So it was amazing. It was an amazing journey, man. It's an amazing journey, and it definitely prepared me for what we're going through, now, because the growth that we experienced at Dell was, I mean, nonstop furious for 10 years,
Wow.
Yeah.
right? Nonstop furious, right? I mean, just different roles, different, strategies, new products, just new ways of doing things, new systems. And then, the next 5 years were like a lot of growth pains. And then obviously, the last 5 years, a lot of competition, right? Market challenges in the market, 2008 and everything else, but just really helped prepare me and help me grow as a personally and also professionally.
Yeah, so you could just talk about learning that style of leadership. We are, we're the consequence of the things we've been exposed to, and you've been exposed to great leadership. You've been exposed to someone that knows how to come in and not just be a transactional leader, but being a transformational leader. Kind of bringing that into the organization, and now you're bringing that obviously into DivInc and teaching these younger founders, whether they're young in age or just young in time, and actually having their reps to go build in the startup world. Just a very unique set of eyes you're able to bring to help their vision expand a little bit more and help them focus on the things they need to be doing day in and day out. Because they say the thing is, like, we can't be what we can't see, but we
Yeah.
also can't be what we've never not ever seen, but even done. Right, even tried ourselves. Right, sometimes this is our first go around talking about, even, I don't know your backstory before you got in the Dell, but a lot of us, as speaking to the Black community specifically, a lot of us are the first time, creating and accumulating this type of wealth, whether it's upper middle class or breaking out of the middle class and getting to that super high net worth individual to be an accredited investor. But this is our first rodeo. So, like you said, going in, being an angel investor or investing in venture capital, we never even heard of those things until our later parts of our career, where some of our overrepresented counterparts may have heard about this, when they were in high school or in middle
Yeah.
school or right
Yeah.
after college, right, or go work in the hedge fund space. So talking about what you guys are doing with the coaching, the connections, but also teaching about strategic ways to get that capital. And you mentioned being an angel investor early on in the conversation. It's like, why would I go invest in startups when typically most Black wealth is typically built in the businesses that they operate, the jobs they have, or they go into more safer assets that are real estate, right? Or other investments. So investing in someone's idea with a piece of paper that say their business is worth, 10, $20 million is like, hey man, I got 3 properties worth more than that. What are you talking about? Right. So it's kind of scary, right? To go into space. And that's why, it's a high risk category. But what do you say to, the Black community or diverse community that's starting to kind of build that wealth, first generation? How can they come alongside and learn more about the ecosystem and investing in this space? Because it is super risky, but high upside, right? When someone can put $5,000 into one of the larger rideshare companies because they had a relationship, that 5,000 turns into whatever 300 million or 30 million. I don't know where the numbers went on that after 10 years of it, being off the ground. That's it's a bigger bet. You can't necessarily go do that with a piece of property, right?
Yeah.
So what would you say to that with your experience of being an angel investor and starting to put some of that money that you built, that, you put a lot of work in to build that wealth, and taking that risk on certain founders?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, man. When I got into it, hell, I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to make these investments. But what it really comes down to, though, right? I mean, you have this foundation. I have been in the technology industry for 25 years, right? So I understood what a lot of the business challenges were. I understood technology, right? And so when companies would come to me and pitch their ideas, I felt pretty comfortable in understanding the problems they were trying to solve, right?
Yeah.
And whether or not they could solve it based on this. I was really relying on that as the foundational piece.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And even though I didn't understand the jargon and, all the other terms folks be throwing out there, but a brother can suit up, dress well, smile and take it all in, I'm like, yeah, blah blah blah, and then go home. Brother got to do some research. Like, what the hell were they talking about, right? What does this mean? What does that mean? And really learn fast, right? The funny thing is, everybody had to do that.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody who's in this space had to do that at some point in time. Some people just been in it longer.
Yeah.
And so they sound like they're the experts. Well, they kind of are because they've been in it longer. Right. And so, I think about like Michael Dow. He was 19 years old, 20 years old, talking to investors about Series A.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Wow. At 19, I was just trying to get a job.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just trying to get a summer job. That's what I was trying to do, get an internship. He was already talking Series A, right? And the people around him, right? And so you're talking about getting that exposure, and then really understanding, like, for me, it was like, okay, wait a minute. So you have this idea, you're going to try to solve it, leveraging technology, build a business around it. Raise some money to make the company bigger, and that company has a valuation, right? And so now you've built something very desirable. So either you can take it and try to go as big as you can, or there's a likelihood somebody's going to come in and say, "Hey, I really like what you're building. I would like to buy it from you." Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, well, wait a minute, wait, hold on now. So I'm gonna build this thing for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And somebody's going to come in and offer me multiple millions of dollars, and I can walk away with, some portion of that, right? Yeah. And then, my investors walk away with some part of that, and then some of my employees get some of that.
Yeah.
Damn, that's actually pretty cool, right? I mean, but I didn't know anything about it. We didn't know anything about it, and so. It was like mind blowing, like that. When I started digging deeper into it, how entrepreneurship is such a critical piece of any strong economy.
100%.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Right? At a very fundamental level, entrepreneurship is critical to any strong economy. And how are we participating in that?
Right.
And so, just really connecting these dots, man, about entrepreneurship, tech startups, creating jobs, creating wealth, and really contributing to the economy, right? Yep. And like in your communities, you're generating revenue in that particular community. You're paying taxes. That tax revenue is being used. So it's all like it rolls in together, right? Yep. And I'm like, oh, we should be participating in this in full force. So it's really, really, a critical piece of this. And when I started DivInc, a lot of people were asking me, so, oh, okay, so you're going to get your own space, over here. Build it for, Black and brown folks and all that. I said, no, I'm going to take DivInc, and wherever there is the center of the innovation hub, I'm going to drop DivInc right smack dab in the middle of it, because I'm going to immerse us into this space. I want to be visible. I want to learn. I want to get it all, right? And so that we can be part of it and help grow it. And just build from there. And DivInc is not a moment in time type of initiative, if you will, right, or a business. This is really, yes, we start today, but this is really more how we shift the future, right? Yeah. And provide this path, this generational path, where the knowledge, the wisdom, the money, goes to the next generation, so they don't have to start where we started.
Right.
Yeah.
They can come in already, talking the talk, walking the walk, and they're able to do this more successfully because, we talked about it at the dinner table. We made the connections when they were growing up, when they were 19 and 20 years old. We gave them exposure as, venture partners or venture fellows. That's what this is. It is a movement to create that generational path in entrepreneurship, as well as the generational wealth that we want. So, it's man, it's just a beautiful thing when we see all of the community coming together to really make this happen.
Well, I think I'm really glad that you talked on the concept of DivInc and why you created it, the function it's supposed to play in society, what you see it doing. Talk to me a bit on the fundamental level. What are you guys doing day to day?
Yeah.
What's DivInc look like on a day-to-day basis? What are you guys providing to the community? What are you doing? Is it, what is an accelerator ecosystem? For those that don't know, an incubator, these terms that are thrown around. What are you guys doing on a day-to-day basis?
So that's a great question, man. So what I would start with is, first and foremost, right, we're constantly creating awareness around inclusive opportunities within the tech entrepreneur ecosystem. And we do that through various engagements, events. We host panels, which bring people together, right? And you get to learn through those conversations and learn through those networks. In those spaces, we also let people know and inform people about the opportunities for them if they're thinking about being a founder, or they are a founder. There are those opportunities for them to engage, not just with DivInc, but within the ecosystem itself, right? Whether it's Texas, whether it's Austin, Houston, or beyond, what are those opportunities for them to engage, right? And so we open the door and to what that engagement can look like for DivInc. Typically, it's an invitation, right, to apply for our accelerator program, or it's an invitation to seek us out for mentorship, right? And we talk about the accelerator, et cetera. Normally, through the course of a year, we do 2 accelerator programs a year, right? And so the accelerator program, specifically for those who are new to this, is it's a program. We typically take about 10 companies, 10 founders who are at early stage, say they have like a beta product or a little bit later, right? New product, if you will. And the founder of the company is really trying to understand and get access to the tools and the know-how to build a successful company. So that's everything around financials, the revenue model, the business model, the go-to-market plan, defining your product market fit, right? Really determining who is your target customer, right? And then really bringing focus on going to build your business and understanding what that product market fit is, right? Who those target customers are, and going out. The accelerator brings mentors, subject matter experts, and I would say workshops, education, and guides you through each of those key elements that I just talked about to get you to that point where, okay, we figured out our initial product market fit. We're going to start selling our product and services, right? Based on what we know. And then also the accelerator program teaches you to do experiments, right? Like, okay, we're going to do this and try this out. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, great. How do we change, right? How do you pivot very quickly, right? And get to the next iteration of what you're trying to do. Because at the end of the day, as you're doing a startup, there's a lot of assumptions that you have to eliminate to really bring focus to what it is that that your business needs to go after and grow, right? And then DivInc's accelerator program helps you do that at the early stage. And so those who are participating in Accelerator, they'll go through that. Those who are interested, they get to be part of our community through our events. They get mentorship from us. They get connections to the Human Social Capital Network, and they go through that. Yeah. So that's what we're doing pretty much on a day-to-day basis. We collaborate a lot with our peer organizations. So Techstars, Mass Challenge. We work a lot with venture capitalists in the industry. So the Mercury Fund in Houston, Wild Basin Investments in Austin. We work with the co-working spaces like Capital Factory. So we are deeply entrenched, and all of our founders and mentors that work with us are deeply entrenched with us. As we engage, more of us engage, the more inclusive the ecosystem becomes. So that's what we're doing on the day-to-day.
That's great.
When each accelerator ends, it does not end there. Our relationship with the founder doesn't end there. So we have what we call a portfolio program, and we developed that program because we recognize that the 12 to 24 months after the founders complete that are really critical for them as well. And so our team continues to work with all of our, DivInc portfolio companies to help them. In a nutshell, our goal is to get our companies to become venture-backed, right? We want them to become investable companies. And so that's what we're working towards with all of the companies that come through our program, is to get them to that point. And so, for those of you new, I'll just throw out this term, where our focus is really, sort of the friends and family around pre-seed and early seed stage companies is what we want to work with. And we want to help you get to that seed stage, right? We want you to get that seed investment. So that's what we do on the day-to-day, man. And we do that both in Austin and in Houston.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you talked about, investing, being venture back. And sometimes you help certain founders learn that, hey, maybe you shouldn't go venture because all businesses aren't venture scalable. Right. And us not knowing that, versus us just thinking we got a great idea and I'm going to go raise $1 million because I hear that's what other people do, because they have these relationships. You understand that they come from potentially some type of wealth. They're able to get the friends, families, and fools to back them, or they have the networks to get into the venture space. But also they may understand the metrics and the numbers of what it needs to look like to actually get the return back for a venture to take that risk in that investment. But helping some founders discover early on, like, yeah, maybe you're not a venture style company, but you could still build a very profitable company.
Oh, absolutely.
Very successful, right? Because it's very difficult to actually, have a true venture scalable idea. Because you have to get to that, $1 billion in revenue at some point. And not every business can get there, or every business probably on paper can get there, but the actual challenges of getting there are very, very difficult. So helping some of our founders navigate through that conversation, and that can be very difficult because everyone believes that their baby is the most beautiful baby, right? But being able to navigate through some of those conversations and then getting them prepared to understand, like you said, the jargon, the lingo, the conversation, the reps, to be comfortable expressing that over and over again. It's great that you guys are doing that.
Yeah, man. I need to give you a DivInc shirt, man.
I definitely need one, man.
We got to exchange. So now that you've been on podcast, my hat last time I saw you, you're like, man, where my hat? I was like, you got
we got you.
We got a hat for you. It's on its way, man.
And we definitely want to keep DivInc across the country. They should be in every major ecosystem where
absolutely.
Valley, Seattle area, and we know it's coming. And like you said, you guys have been doing this. This isn't a moment; it's a movement. You've been doing this for back going about 8 years with the vision, 6 years actually doing it. You didn't just start. Obviously, a lot of things popped up post 2020 when the world kind of saw the social unrest that came out. But you guys are already boots on the ground. You guys are already prepared doing this work. So you had a perfect time to definitely go to that next stage where in the seeds you talked about the coaching you provide, the connection you guys provide. Now it's talking about, hey, raising that capital. Would you like to just touch on a little bit about, obviously that's kind of a next phase for you guys, but also we can't, not shy away from the elephant in the room with the market, things shifting. 2 years ago, everyone's got a lot of great initiatives. We want to see more diversity, but we all know when Wall Street gets a cold, sometimes they say the Black community usually gets pneumonia or COVID. Now we can say this a little bit more, natural to what we're hearing about day to day. So obviously, you guys are still doing something great. The job for an investor is to fund the phenomenal, no matter what season it is. If it's a phenomenal business, you go fund it. But we also know that people are being a little bit more reserved in this day and age with the markets and the rates shifting. So can you speak to a little bit about your vision with going to market with raising capital and why that's so important? Because you guys provide so much coaching, but a lot of times in the Black community, diverse community, they just want to coach us all the way up, but then don't provide that capital for us to actually go do what we need to go do. And then how you guys are, preparing your founders to navigate in these conversations with the market being a little shifting.
Yeah, man. I mean, you touched on a really key word, right, that I normally throw out there, and that's really helping folks understand how to navigate the journey, right? To navigate the whole entrepreneurship journey, and that's really the core of what we're doing. Helping them prepare for investors, helping them build their business, helping them understand, what folks are looking for on the other side of the table, right? And how to navigate that. And so, earlier I talked about the 3 barriers, and the one barrier that we knew that we had to address was access to financial capital. And so for DivInc, where we started was at the early stage, right? And so we know that, in the past, early stage capital was not readily available, especially for underestimated founders. And so for us, that is still, okay, there's a gap here. We want to be able to address this. And like a startup, right, we are identifying and we're saying, hey, look, there is a gap in early stage capital. It is not equitable, right? It's not an equitable access. And so we want to create a process, right? We want to create a pathway for underestimated founders to get access to that capital. And we, not necessarily want to do that, and just say, oh, we want to give it away. Yeah, we want to invest in strong companies, right? The beauty of it is we've got a tremendous pipeline. We've already proven that there's a strong pipeline of underestimated founders out there. So the proof is in the pudding already, right? Now, with a investment fund that allows us, right, to address a gap that early stage founders face, right? Getting that initial $250,000, $500,000 to help them get through several of the obstacles and barriers in their path during that entrepreneurship journey is really critical, right? And we don't see enough of that being presented for underestimated founders. So just using the VC numbers, right? Black and Latinx, right, will get 3%. When I say Black and Latinx combined, will get less than 3% of all venture capital that's available in the United States, right? And women are also, in general, are less than 3%. So that's woeful, right, for our industry. The numbers in the angel earlier stages look better, right? But we need more of our companies getting those opportunities. So for DivInc, we're focused on creating our initial fund. It's called Equity Ventures Fund 1. We will be focusing on, writing checks for DivInc portfolio companies and other underestimated founders that we come across, that we mentor. That will be our Fund 1, right? And then our intention is to build that up to Fund 2, which would be much, much larger, where, again, we'll focus on DivInc portfolio companies, but we'll also be open to other companies that we have. And we believe that this is a critical investment time period, right? But like I said earlier, because we know companies that have gone through our portfolio, we've already sort of done the due diligence with them, right? And we can get behind them and then leverage our network to help them get additional capital, right? Because we've already done that due diligence, and we want to build on that, right? If we look at the potential for us to expand into other cities, right? So just think about it this: between Austin and Houston, we'll be generating somewhere in the neighborhood of, so 2020, so somewhere be like, 450 companies per year coming out of our accelerator, right? And if 60% of those are, strong companies, that's a tremendous pipeline. Pipeline of potentially investable companies. If we take that into other cities, that pipeline is even more massive, right? And so that's where we want to go, and to create the greater opportunities. We want to partner with folks like yourselves, right? X Factor Capital and others, Mac Ventures and New Type Ventures and Backstage Capital, Collab. We do all this collaboration to co-invest co-invest into some of these companies. So man, we're not done yet at all, right? Like you said, we're still very much beginning, and as we put these resources together, we know that we can help our founders get further in the journey to become high growth, scalable, investable companies. And finally, what I'll add to this is the point you made, right? Is I like to use the word investable. Some people like to use venture backed, but the point you made earlier, not everybody's venture backable, but most companies can be investable, right? If they structure their companies right, you can get investment capital, from the financial institution, be it debt, be it equity, be it revenue share type of capital.
Angels.
There's capital, right? There's crowdfunding capital. There's capital out there, but at the foundational level, we need to be able to articulate the value proposition of our businesses to attract that capital, right? And to do that, there are particular things that need to go into that demonstrate the value proposition. You can't just say the value proposition. You need to demonstrate that value proposition so people can see it, hear it, and believe in it, right? And that's what makes a lot of companies more investable than others.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. And I think one of the things that has stood out significantly in this conversation, if anybody's listening, is your heart for mentorship. And Jeremiah and I are huge proponents and advocates for mentorship. We actually had Janice on the show. She was on whoever's listening, you go back to episode 1 of this season, and what the work she's doing with the mentor method. And I think mentorship in this space, one of the things you noticed was the lack of education. One we just talked about is the access to capital, but then the social capital, the network, the connections, the mentorship, the subject matter experts in the field that we desire. Like if I want to go, and everybody who's watching this knows this. If I want to be a professional athlete, there's a lot of examples of Black and brown people being professional athletes that I could aspire to be towards. But what about a technology executive? What about a physician? Like, where do we find those specific examples? And you've been able to be that for so many, both the companies that are within your portfolio that go through your cohorts, but also, like you said, the companies that don't necessarily, they just want the mentorship. They just want the coaching. They maybe don't go through your cohorts. And I love always knowing that the mentor's heart, it comes from somewhere. It always comes from somewhere. Jeremiah and I have been blessed with some phenomenal mentors in our life, both through life mentors, business mentors. I have one mentor that says there's only one kind of mentor, right? And it's everything is life and business, right? And so So I'd love to hear from you. Who is a mentor that you've had that inspired this heart for mentorship? Was it someone in your career? Was it someone in your personal life? Was there one or two mentors that really stand out to you?
Yeah, man. It's really interesting from the professional development perspective. Mentorship came hard, right? I mean, at Dell, it came hard, and I think they had a variety of people that coached me at different points in time. When I look at, I had one manager who really kind of took me under his wing, and he said, "Man, you have all this great potential, and I'm going to help you." Right. And I was like, and this happened to be a white guy who, basically just said, "Man, I just really love what you're about." And he really took me under his wing. And his name is David Gant. And I won't forget him. I mean, he was the last guy I would have expected to have done that. And then as I transitioned to Div Inc, I've been blessed to have an amazing, amazing board of directors. And I have a couple of really strong coaches, mentors, if you will, that are part of that board, who I know always have my back. They're willing to have the hard conversations with me and sort of guide me and navigate through the journey. And as I look up, as I look up and out in terms of the inspiration that I see on it every day, that gave me the, what, we got to try this, right? I've got to kind of go into some of my contemporaries, right? If you look at, in particular, Arlen Hamilton.
Yeah.
I met Arlen before she started Backstage. And, she was struggling, but she had this vision that she was going to do this thing. And to see her where she is now, it's just really tremendous, unbelievable. One of the greatest stories that, contemporary stories to today, especially in this industry. I also met Catherine Finney, who's the founder of Digital Undivided, and met her when I was actually at Dell. And, I kind of knew I was going to transition into this space, but watching where she was, back then to where she is now, and really to be able to engage has been, really amazing. All right. And I'm going to throw two more names out, even though he has been a mentor, but certainly an inspiration in terms of leadership and being a voice. Has been watching Robert Smith, right?
Yeah.
Who has one of the top private equity firms in the world,
right?
In Vista Equity, and he's the only Black billionaire who is not in music or entertainment.
Yeah.
Right. And to watch how he stands to support, Black folks in particular, providing, scholarship money for Morehouse. He, the African American Museum, and then also the Martin Luther King Monument up in D.C., and so many other things, creating opportunities for Black folks. And then lastly, again, not necessarily a direct mentor, but an inspiration is, and I think this is for all of us, right? He laid the groundwork way back when it's MLK Jr., Martin Luther King Jr. His fight, I guess the fight that we're in today, trying to imagine the fight that he was in.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I guess we're doing some small part of the big thing that he had going on, putting his life on the line, just inspirational speaking, movement, and action I just feel like each of us owes it to him and so many others, Malcolm X and so many others, to do our little part to keep that going, right? And so, that is it for me, right? When I look at that, and then the last part I would say is when you look into the eyes of many entrepreneurs who inspire to build these successful businesses, and you name Janice Omodeki as one of them, just to see the passion, the spirit, and the desire to want to build something, that is the energy that gives me the boost to give back all that I can to help them in any way I can. Because I may not be the subject matter expert, but maybe I know somebody that can help them, right? And I think that's what it all comes down to at the end of the day is, how can you help somebody, go to the next level in their journey and their vision.
That's wonderful. Well, Preston, this has been a treat. I really have, man. I think I speak for both of us when I say I can sit here and listen to you share vision all day, man. I really could. It's great to see, as an ally, as a mentor, and someone who's been in the space, Jeremiah and myself, we admire the work that you've done and the work you continue to do. So, as we close out here, we're wrapping up here on getting close to an hour. I'd love for you to share, where is DivInc in the next 5 years?
DivInc in the next 5 years is we're going to grow our national brand. We're going to be in multiple cities. We want to be in many cities as we possibly can. My take would be somewhere between 5-10 cities we'll be in nationwide. And we will be amongst the highest producers. I would say we should be one of the highest producing accelerator program for underestimated founders across the United States. And hopefully we'll be one of the top investors as well for underestimated founders as well. So next 5 years, we're gonna continue the vision. We're gonna continue to be part of how we take innovation ecosystem to the next level and be a premier partner in doing so.
That's awesome, man. Well, we're excited to see it. We're excited to run alongside of you and encourage each other while we go, really close this wealth gap in the space. Because, like you said, it's hard to believe in capitalism. We don't have access to capital, right? We got to change.
Yes, sir.
We live in a capitalist society. We're going to bring the capital, connections, and the coaching to our community so they can go build these dynamic businesses. So I really appreciate you, Preston. Let's definitely stay in touch. Look forward to seeing you soon. We'll probably be out there in the Austin area here before you know it.
Yes, absolutely.
Love it, man. Appreciate you both, man. And hope to be seeing both of y'all soon, man. We got, like I said earlier, we got work to do. And the more we can do together, the more mountains we can move, man. So let's do it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Preston.
Thank you
guys. Yeah, very much, Preston. Appreciate you. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Underestimated Podcast. This is, again, season 2. We're very excited. Thank you to our wonderful sponsors who make all this possible. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.